Okay, here we go. Part 2. I got left off here. Basically, where I left off at was the creation of the Macho Man character in Ohio Valley Wrestling, which I had become. And I was out there. We were talking about Russ McCullough. It was me and Kenny Bolin, who was acting as Jerry Lawler. And we were out there probably for a good 7 minutes just doing our spiel on the microphone and in the camera and to the crowd. And I didn't get a chance to see Cornette's reaction because I had the shades on. And we were just moving right along. And, of course, we ended up having Russ McCullough came out. And I ended up just trying to attack him with a double axe handle twice, and then he ended up popping me once, and then I would, end up going down, and then Kenny Bolin would take off his strap his imaginary strap that he had that Lawler used to do when he was mad, and he attacked her. He went to go punch Russ McCullough, if I remember correctly, and of course Russ knocked him down with one punch, put on his crown, and was strutting the Jackie Fargo strut in the middle of the ring, and the crowd just went, bananas for it, and they ended up going to a commercial break. And again, this was just taping, so it was their TV taping. So we went in the back and ended up going outside because it got very hot in the building. And I ended up going outside, and Cornette himself, who was a real hothead, you didn't know what to expect when Cornette came down from the booth from doing play-by-play. Whenever he would come down from that booth, was either to take a break or to chew somebody out. Very rarely did he ever come down there to compliment somebody on a job well done. That was not Jim Cornette. If he did compliment you, you were one of the few, and I was one of the few, and it was great because he actually came outside. He's like, "Where's Thurston? Where's Thurston?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I screwed up somehow." And he was saying it was one of the greatest things he's ever seen. Told me how wonderful I was on the microphone, one of the best OVW had at the time, and cutting promos, on the microphone is one of the toughest things that these wrestlers do. They can be great in the ring, but if they have no personality on the camera, a lot of times these guys just fall to the wayside. There's just nothing for them, or they'll have a manager out there doing the speaking for them if they're real menacing, or they'll work on their promo skills as much as possible. And Cornette came out and gave me a hug, and he's like, "Oh my God, that was incredible," and he just loved it. So from then on, the Macho Man Thurston Throckmorton, because we couldn't use Randy Savage, obviously, was born. And Cornette didn't like Savage anyway, so this was perfect because he could use me as Macho Man Randy Savage in certain bits, making him look like an idiot. And we had some great fun with that. I just had a blast. We got to work I got to work at the Louisville Gardens against the Big Show and Mark Henry, against Russ McCullough, and I was out there with Kane and Mick Foley, and all doing the whole Macho Man thing. And it was just great to work around these guys. Some of the other superstars that would come in, the WWE would send some guys down to Ohio Valley, like the ones I just mentioned. The Undertaker, Chris Benoit came down. Who else came down there? Big Boss Man came down as well. Jim Ross would come down. Stone Cold Steve Austin even came down. It was wonderful because I was a big fan of wrestling, obviously, and they call people, which I think sucks, and I don't know if Cornette came up with this name or not, but they would call wrestlers that were, or people in the business that were fans, marks. You're a mark, if you mark out to the business, or if you're a big fan of Hulk Hogan and you're working in the business, you're a mark. If you know too much, or you think you know too much about the business, you're a mark. And it's very insulting because I think that's just very insulting. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a wrestling fan while also working in the wrestling business, because if you're not a fan, you don't get as excited, and that's just my opinion. You don't get as excited. You're not following things as much. It's just a ho-hum job. And there were a lot of wrestlers that I worked with that were just there for the money. They just wanted to make it to the top. They could care less about the business, and it was pretty sad. But getting back that's how the Macho Man Thurston Throckmorton came about. And again, you can look at some of my other videos and my pictures that I have here on YouTube. And just a lot of great memories. Lasted for a couple of years, like I mentioned, and we did a bit with the guy named I can't remember his name. He was a cousin of The Rock, smaller version, looked just like The Rock, though. He was just probably about 5'5", 5'6", just a shorter version. And we did a bit where for 3 weeks, the Macho Man, myself, would come out there on Ohio Valley OVW TV, and I would challenge The Undertaker, I challenged The Rock, and I challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I said, you know, I was the real champion, and that if any of those guys had the guts, they would show up at the Davis Arena, you know, so it was great doing that bit, and for 3 weeks I kept on calling them out, and I told them, you know, you're stupid if you accept, basically, you're stupid if you accept, you're a coward if you don't, is how I said it. And eventually, the third week, you know, I was giving these guys 3 weeks to, you know, somebody had to respond, and each week I'd come out there, nobody would respond. And on the final week, I came out there on TV, and I'm like, well, here it is, you know, doomsday, or whatever you want to call it there, the time has come, and as you can see, you know, I'm standing here in the ring all by myself. And that kills the voice after you do it. But you know, I was doing the bit, and I said, you know, there is no Undertaker, no Rocks, no Stone Cold Steve Austin, so ring the bell because I'm your winner. And then eventually the Rock's music hit, and people went bananas because they're like, oh my God, the Rock's here. And out comes this guy, and again, you can look at my videos, who is dead on like the Rock. He's just a smaller version. And he came out, and people were like, if you caught a quick glimpse of him, you're like, wow, that's The Rock, but he shrunk. And he came out, he stood up on the ring post, and you know, was giving his fist up in the air and doing the whole Rock thing. And basically, we rang the bell, and I went after him, and we traded punches. He ended up knocking me down. I don't think the match lasted more than 2 minutes. And he dropped the people's elbow on me, and actually his foot. I had my glasses on at the time, my sunglasses. And while he was, you know, The Rock would do his crisscross thing, and he would run from one side, bounce off the ropes, and then go to the other side, and then drop the people's elbow. While he was going over me, somehow he was too high up on my body. His foot caught the top of my glasses and just drove it right into my forehead. And you'll see the pictures on a couple of the videos I have here where I was split open, basically. And I was just laying there, you know, just waiting for the match to end. I rolled out. Mini Rock, as they called him, of course, he was the victor, and it was just a great thing, you know, to see the Macho Man and the Rock going against each other, because it never happened, and you probably never will see it happen. So, you know, here I was bleeding, I had blood all over my cape, and I ended up rolling out to the back. I didn't realize I was bleeding as bad until I got to the back, and they're like, oh my God, you got busted open. And so there it was a joke, because after 2 minutes there I was busted open, and of course Jim Cornette came in the back to check on everything, and he liked it. It was a good bit, and we were going to do a bit with myself against David Flair, which is Ric Flair's son. David had just joined OVW, and he was training to go into the WWE, and just didn't have it in him. And you know what, I felt bad for the guy, and I still do, because how do you live up to that? You know, I mean, you're Ric Flair's son, and there's so much expectation in him, and he just couldn't do it. He didn't have the wrestler build, he didn't have the charisma, he was going off of the name, and I gotta wonder if he was forced into it, because he's one of those guys that didn't seem like he was really into the business. He just, you know, he was there, he was getting paid, and of course, Cornette, I remember many times he'd been on the cell phone, one of the guy's cell phones, or David's cell phone actually, talking to Ric Flair, and Rick would be out on his yacht in the ocean, whatever, you know, checking on his son, and it was pretty cool. I got to know David fairly well, and we worked together and talked to each other, and I don't think we ever even had a match together or anything, so didn't get to work with him in that aspect. But some of my other favorite times, Molly Holly, when she came down and she was working with Victoria, basically they would send down some of the big guns, you know, to the WWE, or from WWE down to OVW, to test some of these guys to see if, you know, these guys might have something to bring to the WWE. And of course they'd send out, you know, talent scouts, and they had tapes that they would send up to Connecticut for these guys. And Molly Holly came down a couple times to work with Victoria, and Molly is probably the sweetest, very beautiful woman, and just so great. And she's one of the few people that are just don't have that ego, and as well as she's done in this business. There's a lot of people that I've met in this business who were nobodies, and then they became somebody, and then they developed this ego. She's not one of them. Molly Holly was probably one of the best people that I've ever worked with, and it was